Hi everyone, I'm Jane Trotter and welcome to Accelerando Piano. In today's tutorial, we're going to be talking about the importance of practicing your scales and just how much they can improve your technique and accelerate your progress. Now, I know what you're thinking. Scales can seem pretty dull and repetitive. Many students view them as a chore. But here's the thing. Learning and practicing your scales will transform your piano playing. They're one of the most valuable tools in your piano playing toolkit. First and foremost, scales are brilliant for developing your finger technique and building strength and agility across all your fingers. When your fingers are strong and nimble from regularly practicing scales, you'll find that gnarly and awkward technical passages in your pieces become much easier to tackle. Scales essentially pre-train your fingers for the challenges ahead. Think of them as your technical workout routine. Just like an athlete needs to build their core strength and stamina, pianists need to develop finger independence, evenness of touch, and fluency of movement. Scales provide exactly that foundation. When you practice scales regularly, you're training each finger to work independently and evenly. We all know that some fingers are stronger than the others. The fourth and fifth fingers, for example, tend to be the weakest. Practicing your scales gives every finger equal opportunity to develop strength and dexterity. Scales also help you develop a comfortable and smooth technique for passing your thumb under your third and fourth fingers, which is essential for navigating around the keyboard efficiently and effortlessly. Over time, the activity of bringing your thumb under your other fingers will become habitual and feel quite natural. And this skill then directly transfers into the pieces you're studying. If you'd like to learn more about how to develop a good technique for turning your thumb under in scales, please check out my tutorial, Scale Thumb Turns Made Super Easy, for lots of tips and demonstration. I'll put a link in the description below. This is huge. Scales are the gateway to understanding key signatures and how music is structured. Every scale corresponds to a key signature. And when you learn your scales, you're simultaneously learning which sharps or flats belong in each key. For instance, when you practice your G major scale, you're reinforcing that F sharp belongs in the key of G major. When you play D major, you're reminding yourself that F sharp and C sharp are part of that key. This knowledge is absolutely invaluable when you're learning a new piece. If you know your piece is an A major and you've practiced your A major scale, you already know in advance that you'll be dealing with three sharps, F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. You won't be constantly surprised by these accidentals because they're already familiar territory. And by practicing your A major scale, you know what playing in that key feels like. Your fingers instinctively know what black keys to go to without having to consciously think about individual notes. Your muscle memory kicks in automatically. Understanding scales also helps you recognize patterns in the music. You'll start to see scale passages embedded in your pieces, and suddenly what looked like a complicated run of notes becomes recognizable as simply a portion of a scale you already know. This makes learning your pieces so much easier and faster. Plus, knowing your scales inside out gives you a deeper understanding of harmony and chord progressions. You'll begin to understand why certain notes sound right together and how composers construct their melodies. It's like learning the alphabet before you can read. Scales are the building blocks of musical literacy. We all want to be better at sight reading. and scales are fantastic for improving this skill. As I touched on in the previous section, when you know your scales well, you develop greater pattern recognition. Instead of reading the music note by note, you start to recognize groups of notes as familiar scale patterns. Your brain learns to process chunks of information rather than individual notes, which means you can read ahead more effectively. This pattern recognition extends beyond just ascending and descending scales. You'll also start to recognize arpeggios, broken chords, and other patterns that are all derived from scale knowledge. You can see in this example from a Clementi sonatina, there are numerous opportunities to shortcut the note reading process. Notes which form the basis of chords and their inversions are prominent on the first line, making the left hand in particular easier to navigate. Complete D major scales are present, as are the arpeggios in both hands. And much of the right hand melody uses fragments of scales too. As this example highlights, the more you know your scales, the more you'll be able to recognize and analyze patterns in the music. You'll become more proficient at sight reading, and most importantly, you'll be able to learn your pieces faster. It's as simple as that. Knowing your scales enhances and accelerates your learning process, so don't neglect them. One of the most challenging aspects of piano playing is achieving an evenness of touch, making sure every note sounds clear, balanced, and consistent in tone and volume. Scales are perfect for developing this skill because they force you to pay attention to how each finger depresses the key. When you play a scale slowly and mindfully, you can really listen to whether all the notes sound equally weighted, or whether some pop out too loud or hardly sound at all. And practicing scales in different ways has huge benefits. You can practice them legato and staccato, loud and soft, with changes in dynamic levels or varied accentuation and articulation. There are numerous possibilities. In fact, I'm developing a series of videos on this topic. Take a look at the first tutorial in Supercharge Your Scales, where I outline lots of practical tips and ideas for how to incorporate loud and soft playing into your scale practice. Practicing your scales in varied ways prepares you for when you encounter similar technical requirements in your pieces. For example, if the melody in the right hand needs to sing out louder than the accompaniment in the left, you've already got to grips with this skill by practicing your scales with different dynamic levels in each hand. Or if there's a passage in a piece where one hand is legato and the other is staccato, you already know how to coordinate this because your scales have been your training ground. So scales aren't just about mindlessly and mechanically running up and down the keyboard. You're training yourself to develop a secure and refined sense of touch and tonal control. Finally, here's something that often gets overlooked. Knowing your scales thoroughly gives you confidence when approaching new pieces. You're not intimidated by key signatures or technical passages because you've already done the groundwork. You feel more prepared and capable, which makes the whole learning process more enjoyable and less stressful. So, there you have it. Lots of reasons why scales deserve a central place in your practice routine. They help you to build a solid technical foundation and finger strength. They teach you key signatures and music theory. They improve your sight reading. They develop evenness and control in your playing, and they can boost your confidence. I have heaps of scale tutorials on my YouTube channel, ranging from how to remember key signatures to explaining the difference between harmonic, melodic, and natural minors, to tips on technique and how to play in individual keys, and lots more. So please feel free to dive in and explore. Far from being a chore, scales are actually one of the smartest investments you can make in your piano playing. The time you spend on scales will pay dividends across every aspect of your playing and musicianship. Embrace your scales. Your future self will thank you. Thanks for watching and happy practicing.